Hi everyone, it's Kim from Fleece and Harmony. Welcome to our podcast that's being recorded in our yarn shop on our sheep farm in Belfast, Prince Edward Island. This is a knitting and crochet podcast. We just have a little bit of crochet today just because I'm going to do some finishing work in crochet on one of my projects. And we also have a woolen mill. So if you haven't joined us before, this is a sheep farm with a woolen mills where we make our own yarn, and we have a yarn shop where we carry our own yarn that we make here, but we also are a Rowan flagship store for Canada. So welcome if this is your first time. If you've joined us before, then you know all about us and you know what's going to happen next. We're going to have a farm update, and we're going to talk about some finished objects and some works in progress. Also, there'll be a shop update. We have kind of a lot of things happening in the shop right now. I also wanted to remind people that we have, I've been putting chapters in the description. So if you go down on YouTube and you look down at the description, you'll see that there's chapters there. So if there's parts that you want to skip, or there's parts of the podcast that you want to look at again, you can just go right to the descriptions and find that. And we do quite detailed descriptions down there. And we also do a link for any product that I'm talking about in the podcast. There's one link that you can click, and it's the collection for episode 84. And you will be able to see there everything that we talk about. So the first thing that we start with usually, as you viewers that have joined me before know, is the farm update. So the good news is that since the last podcast, the wood furnace guy came and cleaned the chimneys, or I guess he's the chimney sweeper, came. So all of the chimneys are clean, and that means that we have our wood furnace going, and it's been so cozy in the farmhouse that it's just been great. It makes such a difference to have that wood burning furnace. So I've talked about this before. We have a wood lot, and we're taking the wood for our wood furnace directly from our wood lot. We have a guy that comes and maintains the wood lot. But this year we actually had wood from another farm delivered because there wasn't enough wood that we wanted to cut in our wood lot to have the guy come and bring all his equipment and everything to do it this year in our own wood lot. So we're burning wood from another wood lot. So there's lots of wood lots, managed wood lots on Prince Edward Island. And Prince Edward Island has a really, really great program for people that own land that want to manage their wood lot and keep it healthy. So we take part in that. So we have about 26 acres of wood lot that we manage. And a number of years ago, I might have already talked about this as well. A number of years ago, we actually planted, I think, 850 trees in our wood lot because we wanted sugar maple and oak. So we planted all of those trees, and we're watching them grow. I don't know how big they'll be before we can't get up there to look at them anymore. But anyway, there's trees. It's a mixed wood lot with lots of hardwood and softwood. So we enjoy walking up there and looking around, and we can see the trees that we planted have started to grow and everything. So it's kind of cool. The animals are all great on the farm. The horses are good. The sheep are good. We're just running out of grass right now. So almost to the middle of November, and they've still been grazing on grass. So it's just been amazing that they've been able to eat grass. So we just had to order hay today. So our first batch of hay that comes from the farmer that provides us with hay is going to come probably at the end of this week. And I don't think we've ever gotten past the last 3 years, because of dry conditions, we've actually had to start ordering hay in August. So this has been a great break, and the animals certainly love it when they're eating fresh grass instead of dried hay. But it's just they're still out in the fields eating, and like I said, it'll just be within the next couple days. It's getting pretty frosty in the mornings, so it is a beautiful day here today, but it is cold and it's windy. And if you hear a little bit of a banging noise every now and then, you may hear it on the recording. It's actually the door from the shop to the mill is a pocket door, and if we close it, it shakes. If we open it, It shakes less, but you still can hear it every now and then. So if you hear that little bit of a noise, it's because it's so windy outside today. It's just like a blustery but bright sunny day. And it's the first day that I'm able to feel comfortable wearing this great cardigan that I have on. This was another sample that came from Rowan. It's called the Cowl Cardigan, and it's from Mode 1, so the first Mode book of patterns that we have in stock if you're interested in it. I'm going to take a picture, and you'll see the full length of it because it is quite a long, it comes down to around the middle of my thighs. It doesn't have any buttons or anything. It just closes, comes together like this, but it has this fantastic cowl that is knitted in. So I'm not going to move it around because the microphone is right there, but this is like an infinity cowl that's attached right to the sweater. So it's amazing. You have this big, huge loop in the front, but when you twist it around and put it over your neck, it's actually what keeps the cowl or the cardigan closed. And it's knit in Kid Classic. So that is a yarn obviously made with mohair and wool, a blend of mohair and wool. It's fairly thick, so it's about 153 yards to 50 grams, I think. So I guess they would classify that as a worsted, but it's spun, so it's very fluffy. So it knits up really quickly. It's not quite an Aran, but I think it's kind of a heavy worsted. And the color is Pumice. I think it's color number 888. And it's just makes the coziest feeling for a sweater or a cardigan that you wouldn't believe. And I'm going to show you more about Kid Classic later in the podcast as well. So this is the cowl, it's a cowl and a cardigan. So it's the Cowl Cardigan out of Mode Book 1, and there's lots of other great patterns in Mode Book 1 as well. So you can check that out on our website. So for whips and rips, so works in progress, and there's no rips, but there's been some cutting. So guess what we're going to talk about? Paisley the knitting is finally finished on Paisley, and I'm going to steek it right in front of you. So the first thing I'm going to do though is just give you an update on tungsten. So tungsten is the sweater that I was working on from magazine 70 that I'm still working on, but I didn't really make any progress much this last week, so I am not going to show it because it looks almost exactly the same as it did the last time. And but I am going to go right to Paisley because there's exciting news there. So the two sleeves are finally finished. So the last time I was just finishing up the last sleeve, and these were knit in the round. And I kind of wish that I had knit them two together, but I don't really enjoy knitting in the round two together. I've done socks that way, but the second sleeve is just a tiny bit bigger than the first sleeve. So I have that. Don't worry, they're not that uneven. They're almost the same, but I must have been a little bit more relaxed when I did the second sleeve because it's just a tiny bit bigger than the first one. So I'm hoping that I can correct that with blocking, but there's nothing to be done about it now. So I have two sleeves, and I have the jacket here. And I recorded the steeking of the jacket before I recorded the podcast because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have some kind of drama to talk about, like I cut through the back of the sweater or something like that. It all turned out really well. So I'm just going to show you this. I'm not, because now it's in, so there were Steeks at the sleeve and at this top, the sleeve shaping, and steek in the front, so because this cardigan is knit in the round. So here it is in pieces, and I am going to, it's just rolling a little bit because I haven't done any of started the button bands or anything. So just see that, and the back, and you can see inside. everything. So there you go. So we're going to hop over to the video where I did the steeking, and you'll see the details of the cutting of that. Okay, so here we are in front of the Paisley, and I have sewn zigzag stitches along the steeking line. So you can see up the front of the cardigan, I did quite a wide band with alternating rows because I was afraid to do it any smaller. So it's probably bigger than it has to be. And I did do zigzag stitch on both sides. You can barely see it because it was a beige thread that's almost exactly the same color as the light gray here, but I took a closer picture, so you'll see that now. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start right with the front, diving right in, because the sleeves are also steeked, but I'll do those after. And I picked kind of a path that I'm going to go up. And I'm just going to start the cutting. I have a piece of cardboard underneath because I don't want to catch the back of the sweater. So safety first as far as that goes. So I'm going to pick a row, and there we go. Just going to go up this line of stitches. Can't believe that my hands are not even sweaty. Just taking my time. I don't want to get off the track. Just making sure that I still have cardboard underneath me. Can you imagine if you lifted it up and you'd cut right through the back of the sweater? Honestly, I think I would die. Oh, here we go. So I know my cardboard is not that long, so I'm going to pull all of this down. Because I see it up there. And I'm going to reposition this. And I'm going to make sure that I'm still on the same line, which is this gray one. Okay, that's it. Oh, my heart's pounding. It's open. All right, so that's that, and then you turn this over and you start picking up. So I'll be doing the button bends along there, but honestly, I've done the zigzag stitches along, but you can see the yarn barely moves anyway. It's nice when you have a nice rustic yarn that it really is barely moving. So that's great news. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the sleeves, and I'm just going to show the steek there. And in this case, now that the front is open, I don't need to have the cardboard. And I left a white line up the middle on these. I got a little bit smarter about how I was going to do this. There's a little tiny hole here at the bottom, so I am just going to go right ahead and cut up this white line. Really being careful that I'm right up the middle. Okay, so there's the underarm or the sleeve shaping, and then I just have one more, and I'm just going to make sure that I don't have any fabric under it. And in this case, I did a purple line. There was kind of no rhyme or reason to that. I just going to take a look at this for a second. Yeah, the purple line is good. Okay. my zigzag stitch is a little over too far on one part, but I think I'm going to take the line next to the purple line. Just looks like it's more even, but I don't think it really matters at this point. Might have got a little mixed up when I started the pattern. Okay, that's it. Steeking on the Paisley done. Yay! So that's it. It was a little bit anticlimactic, even though my hands were a little bit sweaty, I have to admit. And I certainly wasn't going to do it without putting that cardboard underneath, because I just, as I said in the recording, I would just die if you, can you imagine if you did all of this and then you cut through the back of your sweater? I mean, it would have been just horrific. So that's it. So now, I don't know if it's going to take me quite as long to do all of the finishing on this as it took to knit it. I hope not. But you have to, there's a combination of knitting and crochet for the buttons, button band, I should say, and the neck band. So that's the next step that I'm going to start. And then after that, there is also all kinds of crocheting to do around the different parts of the cardigan. So this front panel here actually has crochet detail that goes around the paisleys. And there's also sequins to go on, and then there's mother of pearl buttons. So there's still all kinds of fun to be had with the Paisley project, but I'm really, really happy that the knitting is finished. I'm happy the way that it turned out. It's going to be a lovely jacket, but I do have to admit that all of this this patterning all over it gets a little bit much by the time you finished it. It's a lot of knitting with that pattern. It's not hard because it's obviously easy to memorize. It's only a 3-stitch pattern and you just do it over and over and over again. But it did get a little bit, I wouldn't exactly say boring, but a little bit enough already while I was doing it. But it's all done now. And I'm really excited to get the finishing touches put on that. And I hope that it's still cold by the time I finish doing the all of the finishing work on it, because it's quite a heavy cardigan. So that's the big work in progress. And I wanted to show another work in progress, which is actually not my it's not my project. It's actually Jennifer Hicks is knitting. She's also knitting with the Kid Classic. So she's using the color Mulberry, and I forget what the number is, and there's no way I'm going to be able to see it without my glasses. So she's knitting in this beautiful kind of purpley burgundy color, and she's making a sweater called Elda. See a picture here. And it's all fisherman's rib. So it's a very simple design, but it's made in fisherman's rib. And she lent me her knitting. She has socks to finish for somebody else. So she said it'll be a good excuse for her to finish her socks. But I'll take a picture maybe if I can't see this close enough. But it's fisherman's rib, which is so nice and squishy. And this yarn is unbelievable. When you feel it, it's so soft and it has a lot of loft. So this is just going to be a beautiful classic sweater. The vents on the side make it lovely, and it's going to knit up pretty quickly, I think, for her. So this is a project with Kid Classic. This is a project with Kid Classic that I'm wearing. This one is seed stitch, actually. This cardigan is seed stitch and garter stitch on the sleeve. So I would think that this is going to knit really quickly, and I'm going to find out because my next project is going to be this cardigan, but in red. So I can hardly wait for this. This is cherry red in Kid Classic. This size is just a little bit big for me, and it took 14 balls. So I think I'm going to knit the next size down. I'll just check my gauge and everything, but I'm going to do it in this fantastic red that Kid Classic has. So I'm super excited about that as well. And I'm hoping that it's going to go fast. I will say one thing though about the design is that you just knit the sleeves as you would normally, but clearly they're pretty long, and I will be rolling them up like this. So I think I'm going to just do this. This really bugs me when sleeves are rolled up and you see the inside of the seam there. I think I'm going to knit on the wrong side or do the garter stitch on the wrong side, and I'm going to seam so that where I turn up you don't see this the seam there. So I'm going to seam on the public side for the first couple or inch or two, however long I think I want my cuff to be, and then I will turn it up so that on the inside you don't see this lumpy seam. The other thing I could do is also do a 3 needle bind off, and then it has a more finished look, but then you wouldn't have to turn it up. So I'll decide what I'm going to do, and you guys will be the first to know about what it is. So that's it. So those are the whips. So, and new project to be started. I have made, like I said, a little bit of progress on tungsten, so I'll continue to do that. It's not a super fast knit. I thought it was going to be really easy, but I mentioned before in the last podcast that you have those lines that go on the argyle part, and with those they're done with intarsia, so there's a little bit of management with the bobbins and everything, and I got my bobbins sorted out. So the last episode I was saying that I was spending more time getting the bobbins organized than I was actually knitting, but I did get those straightened out by doing the little balls. And somebody made a comment in the comment section for the video that I should try little butterfly bobbins instead, and I did do that, and that was really helpful, so I don't have balls that are rolling around. So that's great. So there's going to be good progress on that for the next podcast. So I think that's all that there is to say about the works in progress and the rips. So we're going to go right to the shop update. So we have had 2 orders of the knitting barber cords. And if for anybody that doesn't know about these are little silicone cords that come in a can like this. And they're made by the knitting barber who's from Finland. So her name is Jojo, actually. And they come in 14 different colors. These are the mauve ones. So I'm just going to show you. You get this little tin with these cords. And a couple people have written to ask, they got the cords because they knew it was a good idea, but they weren't sure how to use them. So I'm just going to show you. They're silicone cords. There's a little bit of a hole on the end of the cord. And the way you use them, it's really for people that are knitting in the round and you want to try on your sweater in the round without having to change your interchangeable cords or extend the cable so that you can pull it over your head. And all you do to use them is you take the tip of your needle and you just put it inside. Whoop, I'm going to have to put it here, and I don't have my glasses on. So, okay, so you just insert the tip of your needle into the cord. And you're going to think that you're not going to be able to do it because the cord is really fine, but you just push it down there and it stays on really, really well. So that's all it is. I'm just going to try to do this one without my glasses too, because it looks like the hole is really tiny. Yeah, so that's it. And you just push it down there until you feel safe. And I'm using, these are the Chiagu stainless steel. So, but it grips really, really well. And I'm just going to show you. Jennifer Hicks is watching, she's probably freaking out because I'm just going to move her knitting all the way around and get it over on the cord. Wouldn't it be something if it fell off? That wouldn't be funny. Well, it might be a little bit funny. Yeah, so I can feel it. It's sliding over. They're not moving. Anyway, you get the idea. They're on there pretty tight. It just slides right over. So you can see what will happen. You have that extension, and if you had something knit in the round, it would just go all the way around, and you've got lots of room to try on your sweater. I'm just going to put these back. Also, there's 3 cords in the can. Oh, I went up through the. It's all right. I'm just putting this back. There's 3 cords in the can, and 2 are 30 inches and 1 is 60 inches. I think I have that right. If not, I'll correct myself on the title below. So there you go. And then to take them off, you just pull. So I'm just making sure that when I take it off, it does. So you just pull it off, but they're on there really tight. Okay. You don't have to worry that they're going to come off. It's almost off. There. So you just pull them off, and then it snaps right back to the size that it was before. So I won't waste time doing that on the other side, but you can see that you don't need to worry. They're not going to slide off on their own. So that's good news. So that's the TKB cords. And like I said, you get the one that I used, the 30-inch one. And then you get this longer one, which is 60 inches. And you 2 of the 30 inches. In your thing, and they come in 14 different colors. I don't have all of the colors left. These were offered as usual to people that were subscribing to the newsletter first, so they had first choice, and it is my second order, but I still have a good variety of colors if you want them. And great stocking stuffers for knitters in your life that if you wanted to buy those. So the Knitting Barber cords. And as you know, I love books, so I'm going to just talk about a couple books that we received. So we got the Stripes book by Veera Välimäki. I hope I'm pronouncing her name. This is published by Laine, and as usual, it's just beautiful with the cloth cover and the fancy little ribbon to save your place. The photography inside is gorgeous, and this was the collection was put together by Veera, but there's a number of different designers that participated, and there's just some really lovely I actually really love the project that's on the front of the cover. And so this is on the website now. There's this other sweater I wanted to show, but I don't think the picture is super big of it. I'll put up a picture of it. It's called Venny, and it's this little sweater with the stripes, but it's got a little lace detail on the bottom, and I don't know if you really could see that, but I will try to put a picture up as well. So Stripes is in the shop. I also, there's 3 books from Rowan that I wanted to talk about. The first one is a booklet, and since Kid Classic seems to be the yarn of choice these days, it's actually 4 projects for Kid Classic, and this is where the Elda sweater comes from. And you've already seen a picture of it, but I'll just show you that again. And you also have the vest that's on the cover. And there's a beautiful shawl, and there's this beautiful long cardigan as well, if you can see that. And they do give the pattern for a long version and a short version, so you have both of that. So that's a cute little book. These books are excellent. They're usually between $9 and $7. They're different prices depending on I think the size of the books, but they're really good, and they're yarn specific. So we have these for creative linen. I have a 4 projects book for Island Blend fine yarn, and we have the one for the Kid Classics. So I'll continue to bring these in to the shop because I find they're really nice. They're nicely done, of course, but they also have great designs in them. The other 2 books that I have, somebody wrote to me and asked if I was going to carry this one, so I ordered it. I hope they're watching because I think I kept the email, but I'm not sure. It's a book called Indoors by Erica Knight, and it has accessories and things for the home. So there's I'm just going to get to, there's kind of a little recap page. So you have cushions there. You have honestly plant pot covers. Not quite sure how practical that is, but maybe good for for succulents or something. You have rugs, and I'll put up some pictures. Shopping bag or project bag. So it's a really nice book of accessories by Erica Knight. That's by Rowan. And I also have this book by Quail Studio, which is called Essential Outerwear. And I'll show the pictures from the patterns for this as well. I think there may be a gallery page, which I'm just going to skip to. Okay, where is it? Here we go. So you get 9 patterns in this book. And I'll just go do a quick view of them. Maybe you can't see it. Let's see. Hold it this way instead. There you go. And they're all like jackets or really heavier sweaters that could be used for outdoor wear for sure. So we'll show some pictures of that. And finally, we have yarn, of course. So we have, again, the people that subscribe to the newsletter have already seen some of these things, but we decided to, you may recall us talking about before that it's been really difficult for us to find the perfect fleece to do flock fingering. Flock fingering is a fairly fine yarn, is a fingering weight yarn that we make, but you need to have a fleece that is strong enough and also is long enough for us to make it, because we're spinning it at it's a 3-ply, but spun at so each ply is a very fine thread, I guess. So we have to have just the right fleece to be able to do it. And it seems that we may have found a farm that has sheep that provide just the right fleece for this. It's a nice strong yarn. He's got crosses. The shepherd has crosses, so they're not any particular breed, one breed. They're a cross between a couple of breeds that make his wool, and it has a really it's very bouncy, but it has a smoothness, kind of a creamy feel to it. So it's not silky or it's not very lustrous. It's kind of matte, you'll see in the colors. But it does have a very soft, comfortable feel, and also has a loftiness to it that makes it really nice. So we decided that we would spin, this is really kind of like a test batch, and we spun up a batch and we dyed it with these 3 shades. So you have Thistle Blossom. So the purple is Thistle Blossom. You might have remembered that color from the Amethyst Gradient that we did in Selkirk Worsted. It's the next step down from amethyst brooch. So amethyst brooch is just a little bit darker, and then you have thistle blossom. Then we dyed pansies. So the variegated in the middle is pansies, and it incorporates amethyst brooch and autumn birch. So it's not as quite a speckle. We call it a splash because we don't speckle with dry dye on our yarns. And then we also dyed up some amethyst brooch to coordinate with the pansies. So you can do coordinating colors if you want it. The one thing is we had flock fingering before, and we were scanning it up at 380 yards to about 114 grams. But a lot of people found that it was big, like a big amount of yarn. So we decided to make smaller skeins. And so be careful if you're ordering it and you've had flock fingering before. They are now 200 yards for 50 grams. So if you look online, you just have to make sure, if you're used to buying the bigger skeins, that now there's the smaller skeins, and you'll have to adjust your quantities, obviously. So that's that flock fingering. And since we seem to have a good supply of it, then stay tuned, because there'll probably be more flock fingering coming in our future. I hope. It's a really, really nice yarn to knit with, and people like that really kind of a thin yarn to make some nice indoor sweaters. And the other thing that we made this week is we did a batch of grizzly. So if you've watched us before, grizzly is a yarn that we make from the mill ends of other yarns. So we mix everything together so we don't waste anything. So like the ends of the roving and that kind of thing from different yarns that we make, we put them all together, and grizzly ends up being a batch of yarn that is a mixture of every fiber that we've milled in the mill, probably in the month and a half or so before we make the batch. It takes us about a month and a half to get enough ends to make a full batch of the grizzly. So we don't say what the fiber content is, because it could be anything. So it's obviously mostly wool, but you will have mohair in there for sure, because we kept the ends from the sock yarn that we make, or the lace, and you may have alpaca in there. You could have other things. And this batch turned out to be kind of a very soft gray. So what we decided to do was we dyed up Gale, which is a variegated yarn that has different colors of gray and blue and like quartz color. So we dyed that up, and to match that, or to contrast with it, we dyed up quartz, the color quartz, on this heathered gray base, and it just turned out really, really lovely. It's worsted, so it's a worsted weight. It's not the same weight as Selkirk worsted because it's a little bit heavier. It's a 100 grams for 200 yards, but we have these two colorways. So that's Garfield Grizzly in quartz and Gale. So that's in the shop now. So that's it for the shop update. We have a couple things that I wanted to remind you about. First of all, the Fibre Festival, the Prince Edward Island Fibre Festival, will take place on September 23rd, 24th, and 25th of 2022. The committee has been meeting, and the event coordinator is starting it's being managed by an event coordination company. So they've started working on it, and so we should be able to start seeing some information going out to the public. So there will be a call for vendors, and there will also be a call for instructors for workshops and things like that. So everybody that was participating in the inaugural year, which was supposed to be 2020, you will all be contacted by the event coordinator. And for anybody that thinks that they might want to participate in the event as a vendor or want to propose a workshop, you can also send. There'll be an application that will be available. They're not up yet because the coordinating company has just started. But the website is live, so you can reach at the Prince Edward Island Fibre Festival. If you Google that, and then there'll be a link to the website below as well. And there's on the website, there is a link to subscribe to the newsletter. So I would recommend that you go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter because information will start flowing from there, and we will be letting people know about everything that you may want to know about. There is a tab on the website for accommodations, but it's not really been populated yet because we're just getting the accommodations up and running again. So there'll be a couple things that aren't fully developed yet on the website if you go there, just because we're having it all updated with the most accurate information for the 2022 festival. But it is worth your effort to subscribe to the newsletter if you think you're interested in coming, because that's where a lot of the information will be passed. And as I find out new information from the committee, then I will obviously share it here as well. So it's very exciting. Finally, we're going to get to have our first annual Fibre Festival, we hope. And we're really excited about that for September 2022. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you're probably looking at this around the 12th of November, let's say mid-November anyway, and the Kate Davies Knit Along, which is still going on, is finished on November 30th. So just to remind everybody that if you have finished your Kate Davies Knit Along project, then you can post it in either the thread that's on Ravelry under the Fleece and Harmony group, or you can post, there's also a thread on our website that you can reach through our community forum. So if you're finished up your project, make sure that you put your pictures in the completed object threads. And we'll be doing a draw for, one of the draws is a knitted cowl by Kate Davies Designs. So it's it's already made, you don't have to knit it, so you can get that. We also have a set of the Chiagu Shorty needles in the small sizes, so that's what we call the blue set. You can check that out on our website if you want to take a look at those. And we also have a journal. Kate Davies also sent a knitting journal with the knitting season logo on it. So we have those 3 prizes, and those will be drawn for once the threads are closed on November 30th. So it'll probably be December 1st when we do the drawing. And we'll let the winners know that they've won for the Knit Along. Okay, so this is going to seem a little wonky because I'm inserting this part of the podcast in after I finish recording the rest of it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it is probably November 12th when you're watching this, I hope, but I'm actually recording on November 11th, which is Remembrance Day in Canada. And Remembrance Day, we take time to remember the folks that fought in the 2 world wars in particular, but all wars that have happened where Canada's participated. And I always do a little segment at this time of year because we had my grandfather actually fought in World War II. He was in Europe, and in homage to him and the service that he gave and that so many other people gave, and the loss of life in those 2 world wars, we always take time to remember them on November 11th. And I usually do a little bit of I talked about my grandfather's regiment the first year that we did it. And then last year I talked a little bit about the Newfoundland regiments that went over to Europe in World War I. And this time I want to talk about women that were involved in war. So there's not really, obviously everybody knows that women were integral to the war effort, either through working in factories and things at home while the men were over fighting, but also there was a lot of women that did other jobs in the war nursing in particular, but also there were women pilots, and there were a lot of different women involved in the actual war effort, often in the theater of war in Europe. So there's a book that's been written by a PEI author, Katherine Dewar, and it's called Those Splendid Girls. And I read this book, and it's a book about the nurses that went into the First World War from Prince Edward Island. Katherine has done a fantastic job chronicling the work that these women did, girls, some of them, and just I don't know, you have this feeling that they were working in hospitals, and that that was a relatively safe place to be, and that we don't really think about nurses being killed in the war as much as obviously soldiers were killed in the war and civilians were killed, but we don't really think about the sacrifice that nurses did, and women. So this was a really, really good book. You can buy it. It's a slim volume, but the research that was done is absolutely extraordinary. There's profiles of a lot of different women from PEI that went, but the research at the back, there's a place to there's a little biography of every woman that went to war nursing or served in different services, either Red Cross or hospitals in the war, that Katherine could find. And even if she found just one reference to someone and she couldn't find out any other information about it, she makes a mention of that woman here. And there's just really a lot of stories here that are just fantastic. What these nurses had to go through during, makeshift hospitals. They were working in tents. They would, there were cases where the hospital ships that they were going back and forth as well over the sea, accompanying soldiers that were being sent back home because they were injured and weren't able to continue to fight. So they came back home to recover. Some of those hospital ships actually were torpedoed and bombed and sank. And there's stories in here about the women that were on one of those boats in particular. And there was just it's a really good description, without being gratuitous at all, about the kind of grit that they had to have to be nursing under those conditions that they did. And one story I found particularly interesting, because she's not a nurse, she was actually a doctor, and her name was Eliza Mackenzie. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. Eliza Mackenzie. And she was from the Belfast area. So she was here, and she graduated from Dalhousie Medical School in 1905 and started a practice here on Prince Edward Island. So she was the first woman doctor to set up a practice on Prince Edward Island. And she joined the war effort. And because she had to close her practice because no one would come to visit her. So it's pretty remarkable that she actually graduated with a medical degree, set up a practice, and she had to close it because people were not visiting her practice. And then she used her skills and joined the war effort as a nurse. She also did some teaching at that time, in between, right before the war started. She did some teaching, and then after the war, it's thought that she moved to New York and was nursing there. So she never did practice medicine as a doctor, and I just think that that's so poignant. That and thankfully we've come far from there, that you would actually go through all of that training and be qualified to be a doctor, but you didn't have enough patience to keep your practice going because you were a woman. I know it was more like almost 120 years ago, but it was, I almost couldn't believe it when I read it. It was, especially when people needed medical treatment and she didn't have enough people visiting her to keep her practice going. But she did put those efforts in the war, into the war effort, and went as a nurse. She died quite young at 58. I think she died in 1937 because she contracted the flu in 1918. And then that developed into a pneumonia, and then she also had tuberculosis. So she died at 58, and they think that the cause of death was related to the illnesses that she contracted while she was overseas in the war, World War I. So again, this section is just a tip of the hat and a thank you to all of the people that have served in wars, not only the world wars, but wars that have finished, obviously much more recent than that. We just had a war just end in Afghanistan, so there was Canadians that fought there as well. So this is just a little bit of time to give thanks to all of those people that fought and gave up so much, so that we can have the kind of life that we have here. So a time to remember for sure, November 11th, and to think of all of the accomplishments and sacrifices that were made. So I think that that's it for today, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And I hope that everybody has a safe and joyful 2 weeks, and we'll see you right back here 2 Fridays from now. Okay, thanks. Bye.